Okay, Year 7, hello, and I thought that in addition to recording just an audio PowerPoint, I'd show you my face so we can keep it as close to a normal lesson as possible. Okay, so this is the basic information for the lesson, and the title today is Extremism. Now remember, this is part of the Islam unit, so what I am going to ask you to do is either in a document or in your exercise book, please make sure that you write in your title the date and the WALT as well. It's really important with this topic about Islamic extremism and extremism within Islam to talk correctly in terms of terms, and also in terms of evidence and where all of this information is coming from. So this is the sort of basic essential task list PowerPoint. There will be another one as well which has more information on, and I will direct you towards that for those people who are going to use extra information. Okay, so this is extremism, and your WALT, if you please, is to explain reasons and causes of Islamist extremism. Now, I haven't said Islamic extremism. I think I'll explain the difference. So Islamist extremism is something slightly different, so make sure you're writing your WALT correctly. And as part of this lesson, there are 3 wills. The first is to identify links between extremists and extremism and Islam, and we're going to focus as much as we can on the UK. Also, we want to make links with the quotes from the Quran, the Islam holy text, and some teachings within there as well. And the final point is to bring it all together and to reflect on your own opinion, and be able to explain reasons for that. There is always a challenge, question, and extension. If you do this at the end of the lesson, please write challenge and your answer. And the challenge for this lesson is how would the vast majority of Muslims respond to extremism in the name of their religion? If you haven't had time to write the title, the WALT and the date, please pause the video now and then we will move on. So your starter task is to pause this video and go and find out and note down what the word extremism means. By the way, you can see the timing there. This whole lesson, including watching the video and completing all the tasks, should take no longer than 1 hour, so please try and stick to the timings. So can you please find out and note down what extremism means? So please write extremism. So pause the video now, go and find out, and then write down extremism, what it means, the definition clearly in your book. There's also an extension task. If you ever do the extension task, please make sure to write EXT so I know who's moving on to the extra bits. And the extension task is to find out about the London Bridge attacks in the UK in 2019, find out what happened and write some information about it. Okay, so again, I'm going to ask you to pause the video after I've explained this slide. Your subheading is The Jihadis Next Door. And this was a documentary on Channel 4 in 2017, and there's a clip on YouTube which I'd like you to watch. So you can either type in The Jihadis Next Door Channel 4 and go and watch it, or just copy or retype in the YouTube link just here. And what I'd like you to do, watch it, and then in a couple of sentences summarise what the clip showed about Islam and extremism in the UK. Now, there are lots of different views on either side about Islam and the link with extremism within Islam. And I think the amount of people on either side sort of fairly reflects how many people feel about it on either side. And it is specifically based in the UK as well. So watch a video clip, and then in a couple of sentences summarise what the clip shows about the link between Islam and extremism in the UK. As a sort of hint, if you like, I want you to try and use full sentences and explain what opinions people had and how many people had these views. So pause the video now and have a watch. And then if you've paused the video and you've started playing it again, welcome back. And I'm going to give some evidence and some facts. And what I'd like you to do is write 2 of these down. As I said, there is a second PowerPoint. This lesson is called, if you like, Extremism, the Essentials. If you are wanting to challenge yourself, there is a more detailed video, which I will call Extremism Challenge Lesson. And please watch that, and that's got more detail about different quotes, different examples, and where they've come from. But for now, I'd like you to write 2 of these down, please. They're examples and key facts. So the first is probably the most important example of terrorism as it relates to Islam, and what extremism was created as a result of the actions and the aftermath of it. On September the 11th, 2001, there was a coordinated terrorist attack that occurred in the USA, including 2 planes flying into the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, and killing around just over 3,000 people. The extremist group, known as Al-Qaeda, claimed responsibility for the attack. Now you notice that I've said the extremist group, not the Muslim group, because that's what's called disingenuous, it's misleading. So I've called Al-Qaeda an extremist group because that's what they are, and they claimed responsibility for it. As it goes, they are an Islamist extremist group. Second fact, if you like, there were 15 terrorist attacks in Great Britain in 2018, including the Westminster attacks. And again, and I'll give all of the sources and pieces of information and where they've come from in the challenge video, but a large majority of global terrorist attacks in 2018 were carried out by Islamist, jihadist, extremist groups. As a challenge question, if you're like, what does jihadist mean? What does jihad mean? Jihadist, jihadi. Please go and look up what jihadist means, so you know what I'm talking about. But it was, I think, 67% of all terrorist attacks were carried out by Islamist extremist groups, including Islamic State, which you may have heard of. As of 2019, there are 2.6 million Muslims in the UK and 1.8 billion Muslims globally, and both of those 2 figures are increasing. And I think that's important to remember, that there are billions of Muslims, and if we're talking about percentages and relation of those who are Islamist extremists within Islam, it's incredibly small. So once you've written 2 of those facts or stats down, I'm going to give you what I think is probably the key quote from the Quran that you can relate to extremism. Now in the challenge PowerPoint there are some more, but as a sort of compulsory thing, can you write down this key quote, please? You can pause the video. And this is a quote from the Quran. Make sure you're spelling it correctly and putting the apostrophe in the right place. And it says this: you may fight in the cause of God, Allah, you may fight in the cause of God against those who attack you, but do not aggress. God does not love aggressors. Now what that means is that you shouldn't go out of your way to be violent or attack anyone, but you are allowed to respond and fight back if you're attacked in self-defense, which means that, and there are lots of different ways to interpret that, but it means essentially that Islam is not a pacifist religion, meaning they're not against all violence in all situations, but it's very specific. Now as to the different interpretations, we don't really have time to go into that, but essentially fighting in self-defense is what is permissible within the Quran. So please pause it, write that quote down. And this is the main task. I'm going to call it Statement Defender. And this should take you 20 minutes. And you should refer back to some of the things that you've written down in your exercise book or in your Word document as you're typing away. And the task is this: I would like you to pick one of these statements and explain your opinion. Not just give your opinion, explain your opinion. Which one do you agree with? Use one statistic or fact and explain what the Quran says if you can. So I want you to pick one of these. Pick the one you think you can explain most easily. Islam, and so the first one is extremism is not a religious but a political problem. The second option is Islam is a religion of peace. The third one is Islam is not a religion of peace. And the fourth one is extremism is a religious problem. Pause the video, have a think. Which one of those are you going to do? And if you're thinking, I'm not sure what it means to explain your opinion, well, let me show you an example of a very basic PEE, that's point, evidence, explanation, structure. So pause the video now and write down one of those, the one that you think you can agree with most strongly and explain your opinion. So here's my example. So I've taken the question, extremism is not a religious but a political problem. And this is what I would give as a PEE. Remember, you are writing in full sentences, not starting with because. So you start with I think that, because you're giving your opinion. So the point here, an example would be, I think that extremism is not a religious but a political problem. Or you could say, I think that extremism is a political problem. What's the evidence? Well, I would say this is because there are billions of Muslims in the world and only very few Islamist extremists. You need a further explanation of that. In my opinion, again, first person is absolutely fine. The Quran says Muslims should not attack other people, so extremism is caused by other motivations. 3 short sentences, point, evidence, explanation. Pick one of the statements and I would like you to give that a go as best you can. Now, for those who really want to challenge themselves or who are interested in this topic and would like to get more detail, I've made an extra video which has more detail, more information, more facts. I think it's more interesting, but I suppose that's my job. So if that's you, then I would like you to watch that video instead and do the more detailed tasks that are attached with that one. If not, full sentences, nice and neat and tidy in your book, and when you have finished, take a picture or send me the document in the assignments so I can see it and give you an effort grade. Good stuff. Thanks everyone, enjoy.